Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about our plank pose. Now our plank pose requires a little bit of strength. So we also use half plank. So if you find that you do not have the strength in your upper body, in your arms and your shoulders to hold yourself in full plank, you're going to use half plank. And let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with using half plank, especially when we start adding in our push-up variations. You're going to notice that you're going to use your half plank often. So I want to talk about half plank first and then about the full plank. So in tabletop position, we know that our hands are underneath our shoulders and our knees are underneath our hips, yes? So that you have that tabletop idea. Now, in our plank position, our half plank position, the knees are behind your hips. This is what I'm talking about. So, in our tabletop, our knees are relatively underneath our hips, and from here we usually do things like cat-cows, or we're working into something else. But in our half plank position, your hands and shoulders are in the exact same position, but we move our knees. I'll move this one first. We move our knees behind our hips. So I'm going to move my knees first, but then I'm going to reposition my hands back underneath my shoulders. So again, my line that I'm working on in my half plank is from the tip of my head to my knees. So in our plank position, or half plank position, again, we want to watch that our shoulders aren't scrunching into our ears. So I want to push the floor away from me. So I want to have strong hands, strong shoulders. I want to avoid, I hope you can see this, what I call saggy belly. So I don't want to just drop my belly down because A, my back will not like this. My shoulders are not going to like this. So I definitely want to draw my belly button up towards my low back. So I still want that feeling, but I don't want to pull up so much that I'm more in this tabletop position with my hands extended a little bit further forward, right? This is not a half plank position. This is a half plank position, yeah? So shoulders away from the ears, belly in towards the low back, and my knees are behind my hips. Those are the main points of what consists in a half plank. Now, the toes back here, you're usually going to be using your half plank as some sort of a transition. So for me, my toes tucked under is my natural place to go. You might find that unhooking those toes is a more natural place to go, but just be mindful that it doesn't encourage this slouchy, kind of saggy belly, slouchy shoulders type of idea. Yes? From tabletop into half plank, I moved my knees back. You might be the type of person who likes to move their hands forward. That's just, personal preference, logistics. This is what I'm talking about. So from our tabletop, if we are transitioning into a plank or a half plank, simply, you might be the one who likes to put their hands forward and then shift themselves forward. It's not really a big deal. I usually do my knees first because, for me that makes the most sense. Yeah? So, how do we measure, or how do we know where to go into a full plank? So a half plank is with your knees down on the floor, because then you support your weight a little bit. It's not your entire body weight lifted up the floor, so it's a little bit easier. Now, to get into a full plank, the only difference is that your knees are lifted. That's what a full plank is. So from my tabletop, What I would do is if I'm trying to get into my full plank, and even if it's for a few seconds, what I would do literally, I extend my leg long. I'm still trying to keep my shoulders over my hands, so try not to rock them back. Try not to rock them forward too much just yet. We'll get into that. So I take my one leg back, and that's pretty much where my foot is going to go. And then what do? I try to take the other leg, and that's my full plank position. Yeah? The only difference between half plank and full plank are my knees. Here, I'm trying to hold more of my body weight. So you're going to notice that the more and more I talk, I'm going to get kind of lazy and slouchy, and my arms will start to shake. So this might be already way too hard for most people. So you can work on half plank. And if by chance we're working in a plank position for a little bit longer and you can't hold it, very similar to all of our other things, there's always a modification. You take your full plank for a second, a two, whatever. Put your knees down, take a little break, come back into it. You'll gradually need to work up your strength to get into a full plank position. Just holding a full plank for many people will not be accessible. That doesn't mean that you just give up and don't do anything. Take your half plank. Transition into whatever we're going into as best as you can. Don't just give up and say, oh, I can't do a full plank. Forget it. I can't do it. You have to build up to it. Your shoulders have to figure out, hey, I have to hold this body weight up. I'm trying not to just kind of slouch into it. Some problems that you will find very similar to the half plank. When you are attempting your full plank, you might even notice, okay, I'm going to take one leg out and I'm just going to work on kind of like lifting this bottom knee and see, can my hands, can my shoulders support my weight? I'm hoping that eventually the answer is going to be yes. So, common problems. Saggy belly in full plank. Your low back really will not like this. Fine, if you do it once or twice, I mean, it's uncomfortable and you're not going to kill yourself, but if you continuously hold your full plank like here, your low back is not going to like it. In fact, just showing you that, my low back doesn't like it. So that's what I call saggy belly. So you want to draw that low, your belly button upward. Now, what you have to watch is you're not piking your bum up into downward facing dog. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, the difference between plank and downward facing dog. But plank, hands are underneath your shoulders. Half plank, your knees are behind your hips. Feet tucked, untucked, doesn't matter. Your full plank will have your knees off the floor, hands still underneath the shoulders, and basically you're trying to push the floor away from you and avoid saggy belly, but also avoid piking your bum up too much. That can be a transition that we work on in a flow in future videos, but the plank position, avoid the turtle shoulders, avoid the saggy belly, and use your half plank whenever you need. Even if it's 99% of the time, you can still work a lot of shoulder, arm in your half plank. Yes? And of course, as always, we talked about where our elbow creases should be facing. It's the same as tabletop, in down dog, in plank. You want to try to rotate that elbow crease forward without shifting your hands. We talked about this in detail in a previous video, but just as a reminder, as you're trying to, let's say, hold your plank, avoid those elbows flaring out. Ooh, that's even hard to show you. Avoid those elbows flaring out. Again, rotate that tricep in. So eventually those elbow creases are facing forward. I know it's a little hard to see. I have a long sleeve shirt on. But again, all of those things that you have to start keeping in mind. And at first, there's a lot of things on the checklist. Oh, I got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. Yes, and it's going to seem a little overwhelming, but really eventually, it'll be like, I get into plank. Bam. Even if it's half plank. So when you need your half plank, use it. Don't be afraid to use it. Don't think, I'm being a little wussy and I can't do it. No, use your half plank, especially when we start working on our shoulders and we start working on lowering down into, let's say, chaturanga. We'll get into that a little bit later. So take home points from today's video. Half plank, knees are behind the hips on the floor. Shoulders, chest, all still engaged. Right from here, lifting the knees, engage the shoulders, triceps, squeezing your bum. There's your full plank. Where should your gaze be? Where should your eyesight be? Many times what happens in plank, we try to get into a full plank and it's difficult. What happens? Okay, I'm in my full plank. My cervical spine is not going to like this. I'm looking just ahead of my fingertips, in the middle of my mat, but just ahead. Now, I don't have to overdo it. I'm looking up here at the video, or while doing the video here, but I don't really want to be looking here either. I want to be looking just ahead so that my spine is in that nice neutral wave, yeah? So plank position, again, not going to be easy for many of you. Work on it. Work on half plank when you need it. And we'll start incorporating our planks and our down dogs into our flows. That's all for today. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye.